Let me tell you something straight. Nobody cares about your excuses. Not your past, not your failures. Not the reasons why things didn't work out in 2024 or 2025. The world moves forward with or without you. And that's not harsh, that's reality. And once you accept that you gain something powerful, control, 2026 is not going to magically become your year. There's no switch that flips on January 1st. A comeback is not a date, it's a decision. First, you need to reset. Reset means you stop carrying emotional baggage like it's some kind of trophy. You failed. Good, you made mistakes. Even better. That's data. That's experience. But if you keep replaying it in your head, you're not learning, you're hiding. Reset means waking up and saying, I'm not defined by what didn't work. I'm defined by what I do next. Then you restart. And here's where people get it wrong. Restarting doesn't mean going back to square one. You're not the same person you were before. You've got scars now. You've got lessons. Restarting is about using that knowledge and moving smarter, not just harder. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. They don't exist. Start where you are with what you have, your phone, your skills, your ideas. It's enough to begin. And finally, you refocus. This is the game changer. Because most people aren't losing because they're not talented. They're losing because they're distracted scrolling, comparing, overthinking, talking instead of doing. Refocus means cutting the noise. It means saying no to things that don't serve your goal. It means understanding that every hour you waste is an hour someone else is using to get ahead. You say you want to come back, then act like it. Wake up earlier. Stay disciplined when no one's watching. Put in the work when it's boring, when it's hard, when it feels like nothing is happening. Because here's the truth, comebacks are built in silence. Nobody claps in the beginning. Nobody notices the grind. But if you stay consistent long enough, the results will make noise for you. And let me leave you with this. You don't need more motivation. You need more accountability. Look in the mirror. That's the only person responsible for your comeback. So reset your mindset. Restart your actions. Refocus your energy. And don't just hope that 2026 becomes your year. Reset your mindset starts with a brutal but necessary truth. Most of the limitations in your life are self-created. Not because you're weak, but because you've been holding on to stories that no longer serve you. The moment you decide to reset is the moment you stop replaying those stories on a loop. You stop telling yourself, I'm not good enough, I missed my chance, or I always mess things up. Those thoughts might feel real, but they are not facts, they are habits, and habits can be broken. A real reset requires awareness. You have to catch yourself in those negative patterns and call them out. When you fail, your brain wants to protect you by making excuses or shifting blame. That's easy. What's hard is looking at yourself and saying, this didn't work because I made the wrong move. That level of honesty is uncomfortable, but it's where growth begins. Without it, you're just repeating the same cycle with a different timeline. Letting go of the past is not about pretending it didn't happen. It's about changing the meaning you give to it. Every mistake you made carries a lesson, but only if you're willing to extract it. Instead of seeing failure as proof that you can't succeed, start seeing it as evidence that you're trying. Every successful person you admire has failed more times than you realize. The difference is they didn't turn those failures into identity. They turned them into fuel. Resetting also means removing unnecessary noise. The opinions of people who don't understand your journey, the pressure to keep up with others, the constant comparison, it all clutters your thinking. When your mind is full of distractions, you can't think clearly. And when you can't think clearly, you make poor decisions. A reset is about creating mental space so you can focus on what actually matters. And most importantly, resetting your mindset means taking ownership. No more blaming your environment, your background, or your circumstances. Those things might make your path harder, but they don't make it impossible. The second you take full responsibility, you take back control. Keynote No. 2, expand it into 400 words. Don't add ending sentences. Don't add any headings. Restart with clarity means you stop moving blindly and start acting with intention. A lot of people restart, but they repeat the same mistakes because they never took the time to understand what went wrong in the first place. They jump back in with the same habits, the same mindset, and the same lack of direction. That's not a restart, that's a replay. A A real restart requires you to pause, reflect, and get honest about what actually works for you and what doesn't. Clarity comes from asking better questions. Instead of saying, "Why does this always happen to me?" ask, "What can I do differently this time?" Instead of chasing everything at once, focus on what truly matters. When your goals are vague, your actions become scattered. You end up busy but not productive, active but not effective. Clarity forces you to define what success actually looks like for you, not for your friends, not for social media, but for your own life. Restarting also means simplifying your approach. You don't need a perfect plan, but you do need a clear direction. Overcomplicating things is one of the biggest reasons people stay stuck. They wait for the right moment, the perfect strategy, or complete certainty before taking action. That moment never comes. Clarity is not about knowing every step ahead. It's about knowing the next step and having the courage to take it. Another part of restarting with clarity is understanding your strengths and weaknesses. You can't build a better future if you don't know yourself. What are you good at? Where do you struggle? What drains your energy and what fuels it? When you're clear on these things, you make smarter decisions. You stop forcing yourself into paths that don't fit and start creating opportunities that align with who you are. Clarity also protects your time. When you know what matters, it becomes easier to say no to distractions, opportunities that don't align, and people who pull you away from your goals. Every yes has a cost, and without clarity, you end up paying for things that don't move you forward. Restarting with clarity is not about being perfect or having everything figured out. It's about being intentional, focused, and honest with yourself about where you are and where you want to go. Refocus your energy starts with recognizing how much of it you're wasting every single day. Not because you're lazy, but because your attention is constantly being pulled in 100 different directions. Notifications, social media, opinions, trends, comparisons, it's endless. And every time your focus shifts, your progress slows down. You don't lose because you lack ability. You lose because your energy is scattered. Refocusing means getting brutally honest about where your time actually goes. Most people think they're working hard, but if you break down their day, you'll see hours lost to distractions that don't move their life forward. You can't build something meaningful if your attention is divided. Deep work, real progress, and growth requires sustained focus. And that only happens when you intentionally remove what doesn't matter. It also means understanding that not everything deserves your energy. Just because something is available to you doesn't mean it's valuable. Opportunities, conversations, commitments, some of them are simply noise. When you say yes to everything, you dilute your effort. Refocusing is about choosing fewer things, but committing to them fully. It's about depth over breadth, quality over quantity. Another key part of refocusing is controlling your environment. Your surroundings influence your behavior more than you realize. If you're constantly around negativity, distractions, or people who don't respect your goals, your focus will suffer. You don't always need more discipline. You need better conditions. Sometimes refocusing isn't about pushing harder. It's about removing what's pulling you back. Your energy is also tied to your habits. Sleep, health, routines, these aren't small details. They are the foundation of your performance. When your body is drained, your mind follows. You become reactive instead of intentional, distracted instead of driven. Refocusing your energy means taking care of the basics so you can operate at your best consistently. And then there's the mental side. Overthinking, doubt, and fear consume more energy than action ever will. The more you hesitate, the more drained you feel. Taking action, even imperfect action, creates momentum. Momentum builds confidence, and confidence sharpens focus. Refocusing your energy is about alignment. Your time, your attention, your habits, and your environment all need to support the direction you've chosen. Embrace patience means accepting something most people don't want to hear. Real progress is slow, and there is no shortcut around that. You've been conditioned to expect quick results, instant feedback, instant success, instant recognition. But meaningful growth doesn't work that way. It happens quietly over time, often without visible results in the beginning. And that's exactly where most people quit. Patience is not about waiting passively. It's about continuing to put in the work even when you don't see immediate outcomes. It's showing up every day, doing the same things, refining your process, and trusting that those small actions are building something bigger beneath the surface. The problem is, when results don't come fast enough, people start doubting the process. They switch strategies too quickly, abandon their efforts, or assume they're not capable. In reality, they just didn't stay consistent long enough. You have to understand the difference between movement and progress. Just because something feels slow doesn't mean it's not working. Some of the most important changes are invisible at first. Skills take time to develop. Reputations take time to build. Trust takes time to earn. When you rush these things, you weaken the foundation. Patience ensures that what you're building actually lasts. Another part of embracing patience is managing your expectations. If you expect everything to happen quickly, you'll constantly feel frustrated. But if you understand that setbacks, delays, and challenges are part of the process, you won't be thrown off every time something goes wrong. You'll adapt instead of reacting emotionally. That mindset shift is critical because emotions can either fuel your progress or completely derail it. Patience also protects you from comparison. When you're focused on your own timeline, you stop measuring your progress against others. Everyone's path is different, and comparing your beginning to someone else's middle only creates unnecessary pressure. Staying patient allows you to stay grounded, focused, and committed to your own journey. It's also about long-term thinking. Short-term wins are exciting, but they don't define your success. What matters is what you build over years, not days. When you embrace patience, you start making decisions that benefit your future, not just your present. Take consistent action is where everything shifts from ideas into reality. You can have the right mindset, clear goals, and strong focus, but without action, none of it matters. And not just occasional bursts of effort, consistent, repeated action over time. That's what separates people who talk about change from people who actually create it. Consistency is difficult because it's not exciting. It doesn't give you immediate rewards. Most days feel the same, and the progress is often invisible. That's why people struggle with it. They rely on motivation, and motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes depending on your mood, your environment, and your circumstances. If you only act when you feel motivated, you'll never build momentum. Consistency requires discipline, and discipline means showing up even when you don't feel like it. Small actions may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they compound into something powerful. Writing 1 page a day, practicing a skill for an hour, making one meaningful connection, these don't look impressive on day one. But after weeks and months, they create results that feel almost impossible to achieve through random effort. The key is repetition. When you repeat the right actions long enough, they become habits, and habits reduce the need for constant decision-making. Taking consistent action also builds confidence. Not because you suddenly become perfect, but because you prove to yourself that you can follow through. Every time you do what you said you would do, you strengthen that trust. And when you trust yourself, you stop hesitating as much. You spend less time overthinking and more time executing. Another important part of consistency is tracking your progress. If you don't measure what you're doing, it's easy to feel like nothing is working. But when you track your efforts, you can see the patterns, the improvements, and the areas that need adjustment. This keeps you grounded in reality instead of emotions. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. You will miss days, make mistakes, and lose momentum at times. What matters is how quickly you return to your routine. The faster you get back on track, the less those setbacks affect your overall progress. Own your journey starts with removing one habit that quietly destroys progress, blaming everything outside of yourself. It's easy to point at circumstances, timing, other people, or lack of resources. And sometimes those challenges are real. But when you make them the reason you're stuck, you also give away your power to change anything. Responsibility might feel heavy, but it's also what puts you back in control. Taking ownership means accepting that your decisions, actions, and reactions shape your outcomes. Even when things don't go your way, you still control how you respond. That shift in perspective is critical because it moves you from a passive mindset to an active one. Instead of waiting for things to improve, you start asking what you can do with what you have right now. Owning your journey also requires honesty. Not surface level honesty, but the kind where you stop protecting your ego. You look at your habits, your work ethic, your consistency, and your choices without making excuses. That doesn't mean being overly critical of yourself. It means being accurate. You can't fix what you refuse to acknowledge. Growth begins when you clearly see where you stand. Another part of ownership is making decisions and standing by them. Too many people hesitate because they're afraid of making the wrong choice. They wait for certainty, approval, or perfect timing. But progress doesn't come from perfect decisions, it comes from committed ones. When you take ownership, you make a choice, you act on it, and if it doesn't work, you adjust. That's how you move forward without getting stuck in doubt. Ownership also changes how you deal with failure. Instead of seeing it as something that happened to you, you start seeing it as something you can learn from. That perspective removes the fear attached to failure. It becomes part of the process, not something to avoid at all costs. When you're not afraid to fail, you're more willing to take risks, and those risks often lead to growth. It also means you stop comparing your path to others. Your journey is yours alone, shaped by your experiences, your goals, and your pace. When you own it, you stop looking for validation and start focusing on progress. A comeback isn't built on hype, motivation, or a single moment of inspiration. It's built on the decisions you make when nobody is watching. It's built in the quiet days where you reset your thinking, restart with intention, and refocus your energy even when it's difficult. It's built through patience when results are slow, through consistency when it feels repetitive, and through ownership when it's easier to blame something else. All of these ideas come together into one simple truth. Your life changes the moment you stop waiting and start taking control. Not control of everything around you, but control of yourself, your mindset, your actions, your focus, and your standards. That's where real power comes from. 2026 doesn't owe you anything. It's not automatically going to be better than the years before it. The difference will come from how you show up. If you carry the same habits, the same excuses, and the same distractions into this year, you'll get the same results. But if you walk into it with clarity, discipline, and accountability, you give yourself a real chance to create something different. A comeback is not about proving others wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you can evolve, adapt, and grow beyond who you used to be. It's about building a version of yourself that doesn't need motivation to act, that doesn't break under pressure, and that doesn't quit when things get hard. You already have what you need to begin. The question is whether you're willing to use it.